Hello and welcome to the Federal. You're watching a very special series of programs and interviews that we are doing to mark 100 years of the Rashtriya Swayamsevak Sangh. As part of this program, we have been talking a lot about history because we have to cover up 100 years of RSS. It's a fairly daunting task because we are trying to not just understand its history, but also its ideological orientation and as to how it has changed from decade to decade, year to year, issue to issue, how it has evolved. So I am going to be speaking with another very eminent historian of this country, whose name would possibly resonate with a large number of people who are watching this program, Professor Tanika Sarkar, who has not just been an historian but also written extensively on the Hindu nationalistic movement right from the 1980s, the late 1980s onwards, at the period she has been writing on. The first time that she worked on a book was, of course, a collective effort, which was right in the early stages of the Hindu nationalistic movement, just a few months after the Babri Masjid was demolished. A very landmark, very slim book also, but explaining very analytically Khaki Shorts, Saffron Flags. That was the name of the title. It remains a landmark book, even though it was written almost 3 decades ago. Welcome to the program, Professor Sarkar. It's really a pleasure to speak with you on something which you have been writing on very consistently and which we journalists have also been writing up over the decades. Welcome to the program.
Thank you.
Professor Sarkar, let's begin with something which is the basic unit. We are talking about the RSS evolution as the Sangh Parivar as we know it. Before actually widening our scope, let's look at something which is very basic, which is called the Shakha. The basic unit, which uh, where they meet every day. Now, I just couldn't help but bring to your notice something which I saw that Narendra Modi, the Prime Minister of India, on the 1st of October, when he was delivering a lecture as part of the RSS centenary functions, which have been there shortly after the government of India, released, that is the right word, a coin and a postage stamp to mark, commemorate the RSS centenary. So he said that Shakha is an inspiring place where every Swayamsevak begins his journey from me to we and goes through a process of personal transformation. Now, this is what Mr. Modi says, me to we, main se hum. That is the way he would have said it in Hindi. Now, you having studied the RSS, how do you look at the role and the concept of the Shakha?
Okay, thank you. That's a very critical question. The Shakha, I think there are now more than 80,000 shakhas all over the
That's
country, but maybe the role of the Shakha is no longer as critical as it used to be in the initial few decades, up
that's
to,
right.
say, the Ram Janam Bhoomi movement. The Shakha has expanded in social terms, it has expanded in numerical terms, it has expanded steadily in regional terms. Now, every single state has multiple shakhas.
That's
And
right.
even West Bengal, under left front government, or even earlier, I once we started exploring the reach of the RSS, we were surprised to notice that many of our very left secular friends rather embarrassedly admitted that in their childhood or in their adolescence they used to attend shakhas. Very prominent names who are standing firm against the RSS now, but they used to attend the shakha in their early years. And when they talk about it, they say they received a lot of important lessons, not at all the communal lesson which they discarded after a while, but lessons in bodybuilding, lessons in me to we, and so on. Okay, I think it began a process of me to we, certainly, and Modi ji, I'm afraid, is quite right about that. But it also had a dual movement, me to we and we to me, because the RSS program is one of man making.
Right.
So, man by man, space by space. So, if you look at the history of the Keshav Kunj area,
Right.
they control the schools, they control the shakhas, they control the temples, they control the neighborhood, religious occasions, festivals, and so on. Same with Ramakrishnapuram, where the VHP temple is. So, space by space. Now, in my colony in the Alakananda area, I see the same process happening after Rekha Gupta came to power. You know, they are building up their presence, making it very visible, engaging, introducing lots of programs and actions. So, person to person, space to space, uh, and building up a collectivity which is steadily expanding, and pushing it into all kinds of directions, from army and civil service cells to trade unions, Adivasis, workers, culture, religion, education, what have
Right.
you. And they train the leaders of all the affiliates. They have
Right.
46 branches. They mention BJP as being one of the branches, and they also mention VHP. These two are absolutely central to their agenda, VHP and BJP, for obvious reasons. And they also have, among the 36, along with BJP and VHP, they also have a branch on history. And that is the
Right.
only knowledge form that they have taken up as a distinct branch out of the 36. So history has an enormous importance for them, for their agenda. So there is a
Right.
collectivity that has grown very slowly, very patiently. It's a kind of a drip by drip expansion. Okay.
Okay.
So even those who are not members of any RSS organizations, and let me tell you that we don't have any idea of all the affiliates and sub affiliates. There's a whole range of rather shadowy figures and shadowy organizations which broadly operate on the Hindutva ideology, and they
Right.
try above all to transform Hinduism into Hindutva. Okay?
Right.
Uh, and transform Hindutva into nationalism, to
Right.
completely erase the boundaries between Hinduism, Hindutva, and nationalism. Nation, religion, RSS. So they take over, and very slowly, and a lot of people who do not belong to the shakha are formally are trained how to carry on the shakha work informally in their daily activities, in their workplaces, in their neighborhoods, in their kin groups, among relatives, among family members. Uh, Golwalkar had a very intelligent and interesting a program for that. And if you want me to talk about it later,
Yes.
I can talk about it.
Sure. Sure. When you were talking about several eminent people in West Bengal saying, that in their childhood they also attended shakas when they were young, I was reminded of, when I was working on my biography of Narendra Modi more than a decade ago. In one of my interviews with him, he said that he had started going to Bal Shakhas in his own village. He said
Yes,
that it
yes,
was exclusively for children, and there was no, he said, that there was no politics which was ever discussed because we wouldn't have understood. The only thing that we went there for was that we were actually a part of a collective and that we were playing some games all together, and
yes,
that
yes.
built in a certain spirit of camaraderie, and that we all learned something, that new ways of doing exercises was taught. So I was reminded of that. I couldn't just help it. The other point, when you were talking about that the shakhas have increased in number, but the importance of the shakha has declined, possibly because physically it is no longer as much necessary, because people are connected with one another every moment by the mobile phone, by the social media. So, do you see that the shakha in the coming times would completely become non-physical, and would actually get limited completely to technological connectivity, various apps
That's
or others, whatever is used?
that's an interesting question. When I did some work among the women, Rashtriya Swayamsevak Samiti,
Right.
in early 2000, they said that they do not encourage women after marriage, married women, freshly married women, that is, young wives, to
Yes.
attend shakhas, even if they had been attending shakhas before marriage. But they keep, and these were late 90s, early 2000. Uh, so they said we send them lessons by post about
Mhm.
how to informally mobilize public opinion around them, however constricted their reach is, even within home, how to persuade people towards, bring them towards the RSS, broad RSS ideology. I suppose those kinds of, and even combat lessons, the physical exercises,
Yes.
maybe not games, though games were a very important part of RSS activities and gave them a lot of leverage.
Mm.
Because the people I'm talking about, they were small town people. Like
Right.
Modi said,
Yes.
so they were small town people, and there was nothing to do in the evenings, in the afternoons after school. Uh, how many times can you go to the cinema? And
There
this
was
was
no
a
cinema, at least in the small, extended, large village that he grew up in. Not
mm,
at the time when Modi was growing up.
mm, mm, mm. So there was nothing to do. And here was a place where the parents liked them to go also, because for nothing else but they could learn discipline, they could get quote unquote moral lessons in nationalism and religion, etc. So they were encouraged to go, and they enjoyed it. They enjoyed it primarily because of the games,
Mhm.
the fun that they had, and the friend circle that they built up. And those were very close, relationships. If you must have seen Lalit Vachani's Boy in the Branch,
Yes.
which shows the process of building up networks, and those networks operate even after they leave the Shakha. They keep on helping the Shakha in various ways. So that is one thing. The face to face meetings, the face to face games, that I don't think can be entirely dropped.
Right.
I have students, I have talked to students who go to Shakha,
Okay.
even in this day and age, because they
Okay.
like going to. Now, I didn't want to probe too much and ask
As
them
to
why
why do they like to go there?
because I
Yeah.
don't like to ask personal questions unless they tell me. But they so people still go to the shakha and like going to the shakha if they can help it, because that's something
Yes.
that can't be communicated. But online programs are there. They can even do calisthenics and other things online. The
Yes.
shakhas can be held online. A lot of the activities can be held online. And I suppose they are.
They are possibly being done, and people do a lot of things online. People do, actually physiotherapeutic exercises, online with their physiotherapist,
Yoga,
only because they cannot go to them directly. I know so many people who actually
yes.
do this. There's one question which I've always wanted to ask somebody who has studied these people and their activities very seriously. Just 2 days ago, we had the centenary celebration in Nagpur, where Mr. Mohan Bhagwat delivered the speech. Now, before the speech, there were a series of functions, which were done, which also included this drill, which was performed by the RSS, Swayamsevaks and Pracharaks maybe were also part of it, because there were certain people performing leadership duties which wouldn't be given to the Swayamsevaks, but maybe to the Pracharaks, the more senior people, or at least those who have attended one or two of the officer training classes, which they say, OTCs, which they do. Now, by and large, anybody who has any understanding of physical drill would understand that this entire presentation is a very ungainly looking. It is not very well coordinated. The movements are not in sync with one another. It is not even the level of what junior NCC boys, would perform in a school. I'm saying that because of having the past experience of at least, being part of the NCC drills in school. We were much better and more coordinated when we would be doing it. Yet, why does the RSS still insist and continue having these physical drills, wielding the lathi, march past, shouting, giving commands? Is this some kind of a, ritualistic politicization? What is it? I'm really trying to understand.
Well, they started with that and they don't want to drop the tradition. They are faithful to the origins, to their own
Okay.
origins, which have stood them in good stead so far. And it depends on the kinds of people who come to the shakhas.
Hmm.
Rashtriya Swayamsevak Samiti recruited from very conservative small town or those parts of Delhi which were, which are a little, what shall I say, lower to very, very low middle class, lower middle class areas. And these girls and women, young women, came from those kinds of backgrounds, and this was an extra familial space. And they would not have much chance of doing any kind of physical exercise otherwise. And this gives them, when they marching, as you would know better, marching gives you a sense of being a part of a community, being disciplined, being almost doing military service, however badly you do it.
Hmm.
Okay, so you feel strengthened.
Okay.
Huh? You feel empowered. You are filled with. We ask them. They are. You feel filled with self confidence, and you look out on the places you're marching through as if from a height.
And
So
does this also contribute to the feeling that they are contributing militarily to the nation?
yeah, I mean, even the women's prayer, daily prayer, that has that, they they worship uh, armed Durga,
Hmm.
eight-armed Durga, not the it's Jagadhatri, but not the Durga that we Bengalis know with 10 arms.
Right.
And all the arms carry weapons, and they say that just as you carry weapons, bless us so that we can lay down our lives for the country, for the nation, which means they can die fighting. So whether they fight or not, they don't fight, obviously.
Right.
But for the time being, it gives them a sense that they are, defending the community or the nation or whatever. If you
Then
have seen,
are they clear right from the beginning as to who they are going to be fighting against if
oh
such
yes,
a
that of
situation
course,
arises?
that's there. Kashmir Hamara Hai is a game, and you knock down your opposite side one by one, and it's very clear. It's very clear. And if you have seen that film that was withdrawn and it has never been on YouTube completely, um, the world at her feet, the world at her feet, yes, Nisha
Okay.
Paheja's documentary, which has a lot of live footage from the VHP training programs. And you
Right.
see these very young girls, flower like girls, beautiful little girls, who pick up a gun and their whole demeanor changes. It's remarkable. They pick up a gun and they say, when are we going to use it against Muslims? You see it, it's
Right.
there. And they march past Muslim areas, and sometimes just for fun, they train
Turn
the
the
gun
gun on that side.
a doddering old Muslim gentleman who's standing by. And he goes into his house and they are laughing. So the moment they pick up the gun, they hesitate. They are a little nervous. But the moment they pick up the gun, something changes in them. So it is quite clear who the
Right.
enemy is.
Right. Let's go back. You're talked about the women, but when the issue of women participating in the RSS first came up, 1925, the organization was established. For 10
1930.
years, yeah, 1925. For 10 years, there was absolutely, no mention of any women. Finally, a demand rose from women who were part of the family of RSS people. Their mothers, their sisters, wives started asking. So then the Rashtriya Sevika Samiti was set
Rashtriya
up.
Swayamsevak Sangh.
Yeah, was set up, and but that is the space that they were limited to. How and when did it start really changing to what we are talking about? Was it only a post Ram Janmabhoomi movement change that came about, or did it start even earlier after India became independent, or maybe even before that?
In 36, I don't know. The story is that Lakshmi Bai Kelkar was traveling on a train, and there were gundas who were harassing women, and the husbands were scared to intervene. And so she thought that women should know how to defend themselves. And
Right.
when I visited the Shakha, I asked repeatedly, were they Muslim gundas? And she said no, they were just gundas. She didn't know who they were. Lakshmi Bai Kelkar, that is. And women need to defend themselves, know how to defend themselves. That's what they said. I suppose it would get a boost during partition, during the 46-47 violence. It became a more crying need. I think the VHP women, then the baton actually passes to the VHP women. The
Which means
marching
the
of
1980s, because though the
1980s.
VHP is set up in 60s, it's
Mandal and
largely,
Durga
yeah.
Vahini. And Durga Vahini became the female SS force, you might say.
Okay. They're quite ironical that calling itself Durga Vahini and being some kind of a militant. Uh,
Durga herself is a very militant
well,
demon
yes.
figure.
Well, one of the facets of Durga, we have just finished past the Durga Puja, and everybody has been talking about the same thing is in the resonating in the air. Uh, there was, in your book, Hindu nationalism in India, there was this fascinating essay where you write about Bankim Chandra Chattopadhyay's Anand Math and, of course, Vande Mataram, And as reporters, we have simply not been able to fully comprehend as to what was it that really made the BJP, RSS types, so get charged up, about the Vande Mataram. Can you explain, so that also our viewers will be able to understand that what is there in Vande Mataram and Anand Math, which really charged up the RSS workers and their affiliated organizations?
Ananda Math is one novel that Bankim Chandra wrote where he's uh, out and out communal.
Okay.
Okay? He is not like that in his other novels. But here, he was, after all, a senior government official. He could not ask for, uh, he could not openly say that we should go to war against the British, and he did genuinely see British rule as a mixed bag, and there are things to be learned from them. As Anandamat ends on that note, that let them be here for some time because
Right.
we still have to learn a lot from them. But the stridency of the communal message, brothers, when will we, uh, demolish their mosques and build Radha Madhav temples in their place? When will we demolish these pigsties where they live and scatter it to the four winds and things like that? In his next novel, Sitaram, which is a more complicated thing, there are phrases like, a young, beautiful woman saying, Mar, Nere being Muslims,
Ah,
kill Muslims,
yes.
Desher Shotru, Hindur Shotru, Amar Shotru, Mar. Now, when you recite this, it gives you a charge. The language is so powerful, so powerful. The context is so militaristic. Uh, the three goddesses that he describes so vividly, one as the mother as she used to be, mother as she is now, naked Kali, shameless, she has lost everything, and then mother as she is going to be, that is Jagadhatri, all splendor,
Right.
return double fold, only if the Muslims go. So there is a very clear message. There is that religious message that it is the mother goddess. He invents the goddess of the motherland. Now we all say Deshmatrika and things like that, but he invents that goddess. And when he wrote Anandamat, there was a lot of surprise. Who is this Deshmatrika? Is it Bengal? Is it India? Because the population Shapta Koti Kantha Ninada Kalakala Ninada Karal seems to suggest it's Bengali population. And Bengali population was mostly Muslim, so what does it mean? But anyway, it is very powerful, very powerful. And I hate it, and I can still see where the power lies. It comes
Right.
out of the language use. So that is one. It is a religious message. He invents a goddess, and instantly the goddess takes hold of national imagination. And remember, Bande Mataram was also the slogan of the Congress, and
Right.
people were jailed for reciting that or uttering that. So, taking over Bande Mataram was also a way of appropriating nationalism and then communalizing it. The Congress used it against the British and as
Right.
a patriotic slogan. They, sort of introduced all these meanings. This is what the Delhi chief of the VHP told us, that the hymn itself is like the body of the motherland itself.
Right.
And even the Bengali words we have kept in when we recite it, because changing a word means mutilating the sacred body of the motherland.
Okay. Now, looking at your country as a goddess, I it has come back to us in a very modern context. The coin which has been released on the occasion of the centenary of the RSS has the imagination of the artist of Bharat Mata, and praying to Bharat Mata are these three male figures, which are undoubtedly RSS Swayamsevaks. They are in the old, they look like as if they are wearing the half pant of yore, before the RSS shifted to the full pant some years ago,
Yes, yes.
2017 or 18, around that time they shifted to. So, you know, goddess as mother, are we not in some way demeaning or reducing the status of God? If anybody, a believer, actually believes in the supremacy of God, reducing it to the motherland.
Very soon after this song was written, composed, and because of this song, really, patriotism became a new religion.
Okay.
Nationalism became a new religion, and it sooner or later it would have, imagined a goddess or a god. I would have thought, and because the
Okay.
motherland nurtures people, it would have been a goddess you know, uh, more than a male god, I would imagine. So I think it took people by surprise, but they liked it. They obviously liked it. And the image became a part of one's being almost, the most important goddess, the most
Mhm.
important divine figure in the entire Hindu pantheon. And in the novel, there is a dream where even Vishnu, is lying on the lap of this goddess. So she becomes not just a new goddess, but the supreme goddess who
Supreme
cradles,
God.
the three major gods of Hindu pantheon, Vishnu especially. She
Yes.
becomes the mother of the gods. So the mother of India becomes the mother of the gods.
Mother of the gods,
Yes.
that's a very, I
And
would
it
say that
begins
very powerful imagination.
And it begins on a very beautiful note. It describes the land, the green country, the fruitful country, green with crops and ripening crops and so on, flowing rivers, the moonlight and so on. Very gentle, and then suddenly even the rhythm changes and it becomes like a military march or something. Saptakoti kantha kalakalanina karale dvishaptakoti bhujairthita karakarabale. Like, it's a kind of
Yeah,
jagged
like it's like a chant.
arms,
But
weapons jangling. So that also creates a kind of mood change and very cleverly done. I'm
very
brilliant,
interesting.
brilliantly done.
Very interesting. We talk about the Sangh Parivar. We have been actually talking about it from the 80s, from the time the Ram Janmabhoomi agitation started. That was really the first time when the media seriously engaged with the RSS and its affiliated. At time that it really started, we did not even know about what was the relationship between the RSS and the Vishwa Hindu Parishad, how they were connected. Those aspects had not been known to the media because they had not really been very important to the coverage or the agenda of news gathering at that particular time. Now, when you would have actually interacted with their leaders and very much talking about the time when the expansion happened, especially after independence, when RSS felt that they had become completely lonely and targeted after the assassination of Gandhi, when Golwalkar was arrested, and lots of problems that they had to face. So first of all, they actually at that point they had only had Atal, the ABVP, and of course the publications had started. Organizer, I don't know, don't remember offhand if it had started publishing, but Panjanne under Atal Bihari Vajpayee had definitely started coming out with issues by that time. Uh, the Jansangh is formed primarily at the initiative of people who were outside the framework of the RSS. Shama Prasad Mukherjee played a very important role in the establishment of the Jansangh, and Golwalkar initially was very reluctant to actually permit the formation of a political party which was even remotely associated with the RSS. Eventually, of course, he dispatched Deen Dayal Upadhyay to play a very important role right from the beginning, so the control of the RSS remained. Now, how do you see the evolution of the RSS? At the moment, there isn't possibly any single sector in the country where the RSS doesn't have any involvement. They have affiliated bodies among the ex servicemen, they have among the consumer rights forum, everywhere they have, not to talk
You name
about
it, they
the
have it.
name
Yes.
it and they have it. You even said, history, for instance. So, how do you look at this expansion? That was it a very planned kind of a strategy, that having some blueprint, or did they borrow from certain concepts which might have existed somewhere else in the world to be able to penetrate each and every pore of the country?
I think they hope to do that. Man making and nation making must go on simultaneously. So, if possible, collectivities have to be mobilized, but at the same time, a thorough makeover, a person by person advance, that was the task of the shakhas. And now
Mhm.
that task has been disseminated among schools, universities, colleges, trade unions. One difference between the RSS and, say, the left trade unions is that, or any kind of RSS organization, wherever they go, whatever kind of work they are doing, teaching Adivasi children's mere literacy,
Hmm.
or temple worship, or trade union work, they will bring their ideological campaign along with it.
Yep. Right.
Huh. With their trade union activities, I don't think left parties did it with the working classes or with the peasants in such a broad manner. Hmm. So, not even with their women's organizations, except in a few places. But when I talked to, say, Ganwadi Mahila Samiti women after
Hmm.
the Gujarat violence, massacres,
Hmm.
I found them completely uninterested.
Okay.
And I would talk about what was happening there, and they would say, but yes, but they are also very aggressive. Look at how they use loudspeakers during Azan and so on. So they did not do the political, ideological work in the mass fronts. They did the built up the mass fronts. Occasionally, they would arrange for a lecture. When something very drastic happens, they would arrange for
It's
lectures.
mainly among the left
Left, I would say. And Congress, I
bodies you're talking
think,
about.
just after the Gandhian ashrams withered away, they had absolutely no concept of um, mass fronts, grassroots organizations. They just abandoned that.
Whereas you will say that all the RSS affiliated
Yes,
organizations, they,
if we look at what Gramsci said, and I wouldn't be surprised if they had at some point, some of their ideologues had read Gramsci. Gramsci talks about the war of maneuver, where you are in a situation of open confrontation with your adversary.
Mhm.
That part, I think, has been given over to VHP and BJP. But there is
Okay.
also a war of position, which is the immensely patient, long term consensus building, consent building, hegemony building. And that is an ideological task, and which is what RSS does. The messages come from RSS, the ideology comes from RSS, the images come from RSS, and VHP takes it to a violent level. BJP also now increasingly, at least, uh, slightly lower level BJP members engage in violence, but they are
No,
confronting their
even
political adversary.
even people holding public offices, they talk
Yes,
about
exactly.
violence. We have
Yes,
so
exactly.
many
With
ministers.
impunity now.
We
Yeah.
we have the minister of Assam, who every other day talks something in a very hostile
Yes,
manner.
exactly.
Likewise, the people of Uttar Pradesh. What you are saying is, I was reminded of a conversation I had a few years ago with a fairly senior RSS leader. So I asked him that everybody has an ultimate objective. What they want to do. The parties and the left organizations at one point would be talking about that revolution is their ultimate objective. That is what. So, what is your objective? What do you want to achieve? He said, well, objectively, we would want ourselves to completely disappear. So I couldn't understand. You have a very quizzical look. He said, then explained in Hindi, कि हम चाहते हैं कि समाज ही संघ बन जाए, तो संघ की जरूरत ही नहीं है, that we would want society to become the RSS Sangh, so that then the need for the RSS will no longer be there, because the entire society is going to do what the RSS is doing now, which is, as you said, me building, that building individuals out of everybody and feeding them with a certain ideological program, a certain understanding of the world, and a certain understanding of Indian history that is most important. So I think, I must ask you at this point, you were talking about history, and you being a historian, I would want to know that how do you look at as to how they have used the field of history and, for their ideological purposes?
Oh my God. If they
Very
have
briefly, of course,
to.
I know that this is a 3 hour long conversation that can be had,
No,
but
I'm
very
glad I'm a
briefly.
retired teacher, and I won't, and I'm also very old, so I'm still teaching at Ashoka. But now let us look at it bit by bit.
Yes,
They have eliminated the entire late medieval, early modern period, which they call the Muslim period, from the
right,
junior level school textbooks in the at the central schools, and also from the BJP ruled states, at the BJP ruled
right.
states. And even the non BJP ruled states broadly accept their template, not for the communal messages, but for the way in which history should be taught, when it should be taught, that kind of thing, how the colleges should function, how the courses should be distributed, etc., etc. At the senior level, some French-born person called Danino has, reintroduced this period, but painted in a totally dark color,
Okay.
so that the Muslim emperors did nothing but kill the cow, wreck the temple,
Rape
abduct,
the women.
rape the women, forced conversions, forcing the Hindus to eat beef, etc., etc. That was their
Yes.
agenda. That's what they had come to India for. And all these motifs are taken from Savarkar's multi volume History of India, which is
Right.
going to be in a shortened form, the historical sense. Ancient India is a glorious period when everything was
When the
empire.
birds were golden, the golden
Yes,
bird.
and empires were, of course, formed, and that was a glorious deed. But apparently, empires were built without bloodshed, without wars. Okay, conquests were made, and glorious conquests were made by Cholas, Chalukyas, etc. But you don't talk about the bloodshed. You don't talk about how the peasantry, had to be squeezed to get the money to fight the
Mhm.
wars and to set up an empire. So Hindu empires are totally sanitized. Muslim empires were tyrannical. They were, doing all kinds of things to establish their power. And the very major difference they have built into it is that they came here for a religious purpose, for a
And they were
crusade.
foreigners. And they
They
were
were foreigners,
foreigners.
they remained foreigners. And the
And
third very dangerous thing that they managed to slide in is that this is not just a characteristic of the Mughal emperors or Muslim emperors, but somewhere uh, implicitly every single Muslim becomes tarred with the same brush. Every
yes,
single Muslim is a rapist, is a possible temple wrecker, is a, preacher, a proselytizer, etc., etc. And that is what history is there for, to build up a certain image of the Muslim. The other intention of history is to eliminate all, they are now decolonizing history, they say. And
right.
they are learning this language very fast, I'm afraid. So their notion of decolonizing is to eradicate any sense of individual or collective rights from our vocabulary. Duties, not rights. Do not
Yes,
focus on constitutional rights, focus on duties. Rights are a selfish, individualistic notion that the imperialist West planted on us. And if we continue with this notion of rights, gender rights, subaltern rights, caste rights, equality, etc., then we are still exhibiting a colonial mindset. And that is why eliminate the criminal laws, the criminal codes, the penal code, and replace it with Bharatiya Nyaya Samhita. What is indigenous?
yes.
Now, we had no idea of habeas corpus. The British did not enforce it very systematically, but it was a concept that they did introduce. They did introduce the idea, at least notionally, that equality before law should be the norm.
Detail.
Same punishment for the same crime for everyone. These are now all being said, called Western notions, imperial notions, mode of colonizing. And I find that very, very disturbing.
Well, it is very disturbing, and you have very well explained several strands of think aspects of the RSS which we needed to understand. While you were explaining that last bit about duties, I just couldn't help but recollecting
About
that,
what?
the, when you were explaining matter about that rights are no longer important, duties are more important. That citizen has to perform their duty first and not ask about rights. That Rajpath has been renamed as Kartavya Path, and all new government buildings where the secretariat is shifting from north and south blocks are going to be called Kartavya Bhavans, and only the Prime Minister's office, we are told, is likely to be named as Seva Bhavan. So while the Prime Minister does Seva, the bureaucracy and the other ministries are performing Kartavya on a street which is also to be a constant reminder to people, hey, before you ask for anything, perform your duty. That is what it
Exactly.
is.
And
So I
what
guess
are
that,
duties? Duties are ordained by caste, by the
and
monarch, by the the male guardians of families, and so on. These are the traditional duties. That is the
right,
traditional concept of duties.
right. Well, thank you very much, Professor Tanika Sarkar. It's really been a delight
Thank you.
speaking to you.
Thank you.
We
I must
have
say, I
covered
always learned a
several
lot from your
issues.
work. So
Sorry, please.
I learned a lot from your work for a long time. So
Well, thank you very much for this huge compliment. I would say that for somebody who just kind of accidentally got drawn into writing on issues of communal violence, and then that becoming the only street on which I walked on, it's a real honor to hear
okay.
that from you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.